SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. My name is Todd Kirk. I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host, the amazing and the Casey.
Keep it
I'm
going.
running out of adjectives.
Keep it going, Todd.
He's
Yes.
great, everybody. Casey, the amazing Casey Trujillo. I need to look up new adjectives because I'm running out of classic ones. But just everyone needs to know, Casey is an amazing colleague, a very smart person to know, and really wonderful to have him on the team. So, Casey, how's it going?
Thank you. It's going great. It's going great, Todd. And I think today, this conversation, I made a LinkedIn post about this. I wasn't trying to embarrass anyone, but I took a screenshot of an email communication that was sent to a customer. So this customer had reached out to their SaaS vendor and said, I want to get better adoption. Help me. And the person responded with about 10 links. And I blurred out everything. I posted on LinkedIn. I said, is this okay? And it was a great discussion. I think it had over like 10,000 views or something like that. I don't know if that's considered viral, good or bad or whatever. But a lot of people had a lot of comments on it. And it was just like, okay, that was interesting. Well, at Brainstorm, we also buy software, and we just bought a reporting software. And the CTO, this is an important strategic initiative for us. And so the CTO sat down on the onboarding call. And after it got done, he called me over and he said, Casey, this was bad. Not meaning Brainstorm, but the company that was onboarding us. We worked with their success team, their onboarding team, to go through this implementation. And it started out like this. And again, I'm paraphrasing. So the person probably on the other end of this SaaS organization probably had maybe a different take, but it sounds familiar to this other customer I'm working with. And this is why we wanted to talk about it today on SaaS Therapy. Is they said, okay, here's a bunch of links. That was the first thing that the customer success person said. Now, what was worse about what took place with this is the customer success person said, you can ignore these 5 links. They're not good. I wouldn't actually recommend that. I would go to our community. Now, shout out to communities. Communities are fantastic. They're wonderful. But what that CS person was saying to our CTO was the education resources that we have for you, the onboarding experience that we have for you isn't very good. And the way for you to be successful is to learn from the customers that actually found a way to be successful. And everybody on LinkedIn, the thought leaders on onboarding, they have, gosh, I'll just say it, sometimes a lot of platitudes. And they say, you have to be scalable, you have to customize. But then when I go through and I watch how they actually do it with their own organizations, it's either very, very human-led. So I have to get you on a phone. I have to get you on the phone. I have to get you on the phone to help you feel and onboard. Or 2, I direct you to a community resource, and I'm hoping you're going to learn from other customers that maybe have scraped their knees and their elbows and found a way to be successful. And so for today, Todd, what I want us to talk about, because you've been doing this forever, is how do you properly introduce a digital academy, a digital platform, and why is that so important that you do it? What are some core principles that you should be thinking about so that you have the benefits that come later down the road of doing it right at the beginning? So Todd, does that sound okay for today's episode? If we dive a little bit more in this, I'm just kind of just like passionate about it right now because I'm seeing too many SaaS organizations. I even shared this experience with another CS or another customer education leader. And that person responded with, I may have a friend that has this same problem, meaning they were the ones that had that problem also. It just seems rampant and it can be fixed and it's not as hard as what you think. So Todd, is that all right if we start with this?
I like it. And I think one of the things that sticks out to me as you tell that story, Casey, is that there tends to be I don't know if it is like if it's anxiety or competition within a SaaS vendor when it comes to digital versus human. But
Mm,
we oftentimes tend to undercut ourselves, and we say, well, for our less valuable customers, we're going to do a digital first approach. But for our most important customers, we're going to bring in the CSM. And then the CSM almost feels like it's their job to like demonstrate how wonderful and valuable they are by, basically undercutting all of that digital first stuff. And so what's
mm.
interesting to me is I've never seen a customer who would say, I'd rather hop on an hour long call for you to tell me how to do something than I want to just go figure it out. Like if the customer felt confident they could do it on their own, they're going to want to do it every time. Hopping on the phone with you just feels like a waste. So one of the things we have to overcome is this perception of, well, digital scale for my non-important customers and high touch white glove for my really important customers. I actually think it could be a combination of both. And you need to figure out how to balance that and not undercut the ability of enabling the customer and empowering the customer to do self-service on their own approach.
And Todd, I want to emphasize because you got a lot of different airline status in the day of going out and doing a lot of instructor-led training. So we want to make sure that everybody understands. We know the value of instructor-led training. We know the value of a human-based approach, that white glove approach. What we are not saying is that you should eliminate that approach of having humans involved. What we're saying is you're setting yourself up for failure after that initial launch. So let's introduce digital, let's introduce human at the same time with onboarding, because if that goes well, when you get to the scale component, when that point of contact says, well, how do I train all of my employees? I'm set up now, but how do I actually let my employees know how to utilize this new software that we just implemented? We spent all this time implementing. They feel very confident in that digital approach. So I'm going to give a warning right now to everybody. One of those not explicit warning. Let's not do explicit warning. Just a warning that comes across the screen that lets you know that we are going to walk you through our product of Brainstorm. So Brainstorm, if you don't know, we are a software adoption platform that is designed to help you not just onboard your customers, so get that point of contact up and ready and running with your software, but that they feel comfortable in using that same platform to roll that out to their employees. And then as you come out with new releases, that this is the same mechanism in which you'll always get scale adoption. So I'm giving you a warning. We're going to walk you through how we do it, not for the goal of selling you on our platform. We just want to teach you the principles that we know work, because we've onboarded thousands upon that. We're just not talking heads that have observed this. We're not just consultants. We do this on a day-to-day basis. So we know this works. We have the data to prove to you that this works. And you should be getting 10 to 20x the reach that you're currently getting. And I'm just going to tell you that right now. So it's a product warning, not that I'm going to be selling you our product. What we're just walking through is the experience and the secret sauce of how we do it. And if you use this with your platform that you have for education and onboarding, great, do it. Take the principles. We're just tired of emails being sent with a bunch of links and people saying, well, just jump on the phone or just go talk to one of our customers. There is a better way to do it. We just want to help. So that's the reason why we're going to go through and show you through our product. Okay, so Todd, let's do a real example. Like I don't want to play around with this. I'm that passionate about it. Can you choose a SaaS vendor? I think Fishbowl did a success story, so it'd be great to use their name, and so we can show through what they do. And let's walk through how a human approach with a digital approach sets you up for success for the scale approach, which has to be all digital. It just has to be. There's just no other way to do it. Okay. So Todd, let's take it from there. And as you go through this, point out those principles to us so we make sure we're catching on to it. So if I'm doing this with my digital academy, I see how I can do this together.
Yeah. Well, can I say one thing before we jump
Please.
in and start talking Fishbowl? I think it's important to remember, Casey, you said something really important, which is it's not a I need to replace all of my humans. It's I need to use my humans for the right activities. So, one of the things that's hard is as a CSM, you oftentimes feel like it's your job to be the expert. You know the platform, you can train them on the platform, and that's awesome. Like you should be perceived as the expert. Because if you're going to be an effective coach, they got to trust that you know how to guide them. But unfortunately, what you end up doing is you end up doing low level training, and that's different than creative, strategic, use case, and initiative driven training. And what a CSM should be doing, and where a human can be best served in the process, is to inspire. Like
There
interacting
it
with
is.
other people, that's where we get excited. That's where we get motivated. That's where we get inspired. It is not where we go to like get a navigation tour of like, here's where this button is. When you click this, this happens. Beware not to click this button in this wrong order because this, like that kind of stuff, that's the stuff that the customer should be able to learn on their own. So the thing that impressed me the most about Fishbowl as a customer was in the early days when they first started talking to us, what their goal was, and they knew this for a fact, was the fact that every single customer had to spend hours and hours of time getting basically certified by Fishbowl to go live. And it's an ERP system. It's complicated. You're talking about importing a ton of information about inventory data, and you're trying to teach them how to actually go find inventory on a shelf, pull it in, and ship it to a location. And they have thousands of customers. Most of their organizations, they only have maybe a few dozen users at most using the application. So you're talking about thousands of customers with a very small user base. So the amount of time they were spending on the phone was super high. And over half of their support calls were all driven by how to questions. So it was just really low level stuff, like stuff you would hope the user could figure out on their own. And they would send them to, to a YouTube page or to to their knowledge base, and the users would get frustrated, and then they'd come back and still ask them more questions. And so it just wasn't very scalable. And what was worse is it was taking a very long time. So Fishbowl knew they wanted to accomplish a couple of things. They wanted to shorten how long it took for a customer to get set up. And they wanted to decrease the amount of time they had to spend on the phone just doing basic onboarding stuff, teaching the user how to use the software. And so that was their core focus. And as part of that, the key was they had to put the customer at the center and give the customer what they wanted. And in this case, the customer just wanted to get the software and they didn't want to have to spend hours and hours on the phone. So they came up
Todd,
with
I gotta stop you with just all the
yeah,
data. Okay, we're giving you the data points again. You know the ending. It's going to be a dramatic change. That's not what we're trying to impress upon you. What we're wanting to tell you is those are all indicators that your onboarding and your digital academy approach usually is not working. If those are the leading indicators, Todd taught me this principle a long time, the first principle thinking. Why are we having so many support tickets? Why is it taking so long to get someone on board? And we usually say, well, it's just our software's complicated, or you know what, people just have a lot of questions and there's so many different modules. But if you really started to reduce it down, we would suggest to you that one of the reasons why these things are taking place and they're having this type of that many support calls is because there is not a great onboarding approach that is taking place. It can be improved upon. The digital platform academy is not being utilized correctly. Those are just telling you that those are symptoms, telling you that, hey, this isn't working the way it should work. Don't get confused by that. Don't get lost in that. That's the only thing I'd add to what you're saying there on that, Todd.
yeah, for sure. And the thing that's key here in this process is if you identify what you're trying to accomplish and why it's happening, getting back to that first principles idea, now the next question is how do you fix it? And oftentimes the thing that we think about is, okay, well, I'm going to think just about the customer journey. And that's important, right? Like, what do I do during the pre-sales motion? What do I do during implementation? What do I do 3 months in? What do I do moving on? You got to have that journey mapped out. But I actually think there's a really great idea when it comes to adaptive learning. And this is the thing that I think Fishbowl did really, really well. And what they tried to do is they tried to figure out, okay, well, who are the people who are going to be presented with the training? And let's figure out how to make it easy for them to get exactly what they need. So I'm going to share my screen. And so again, if you are listening to this, I'll try to describe what I'm showing here, but I do think it will be helpful as we go through this experience to basically, if you want to learn more, just go and watch this on YouTube. But one of the things that's going to be really cool about this is you think about Fishbowl. One of the things they do is they create a private portal for every single customer. Now, I know there's a lot of systems out there that say, well, let's create a private instance for every single customer. But it's not, it's really just a light microsite that has some content, right? What Brainstorm tries to do, and what we tried to do specifically with Fishbowl, was give the customer a rich environment where they could push and manage all of the users and what content those users got, and give them a very specialized experience. So the first email, right? Because usually still have to communicate. Change usually requires communication. That comes branded from the customer. It's their own portal. It's their own message. And the first thing that Fishbowl asks their customer to do is learn where you should start. So you'll notice here it says, where do I start? And it sends them to that experience exactly in the way that they need. Now,
Todd, it seems so simple, but that's the only link. Now, it's not to say that onboarding doesn't send another communication somewhere else, but the first communication about introducing the digital academy, the introduction, is just click here. Again, what you're doing is a couple things. One, this is automated.
Yeah, not 50 links and 5 of which you're going to say are garbage. There's one link and it's where should I start?
Because customer education teams always say, well, I don't know if customer success or onboarding is even using what I'm sending them. And I don't even know if it actually gets to the customer. If it's automated and that's the only communication that is being sent, it is standing on its own merits. That's huge. So if you're going to replicate this, make sure that the first communication introducing them to your digital platform is just about the digital platform with one link, click, get in.
Yes.
That is a secret sauce principle right there.
Yes, for sure. Now, the best part, I really love what they did, is the very first thing that they do is they have a really short 1-minute video that they present to their users that welcomes them to this experience. And that welcome video is designed to do a couple of things. It's to create a sense of confidence that this digital experience is going to be really good, and that it's going to guide them in exactly what they need to accomplish. After they watch that 1-minute video, it asks them some questions. Now, the first thing is they say, what training do you want to take? And the user can say, I want to go down admin training, I want role specific training, or I'm just trying to learn how to do a specific thing. And what's so cool about that is if you say that you want role-based training, well, guess what? It's going to say, all right, well, what role are you? Are you in purchasing? Are you in sales? Are you in the warehouse? Are you in manufacturing? Are you in accounting? Well, let's say I'm on the sales team. Okay, great. What is your role on the sales team? Are you a manager or are you a rep? Okay, well, I'm the sales manager. Well, now that I've done that, it says, all right, well, here you go. Let me give you exactly what you need in the sales manager course. And it's immediately taking the user to just the content that they need for their role and for their experience. Now, let's say the user said, I just want to figure out how to do this thing. Then they'll say, okay, great. Let me show you how to do that thing. So the really powerful way to think about this approach is they're not giving the user a giant buffet table with a whole bunch of food they don't want to eat. They're saying, what food do you want to eat? And then they deliver just that specific food item. Now, that is a really, I think, a revolutionary idea for a lot of organizations, but I want to take it a step further. So you'll notice that I'm in this portal logged in to the customer of Fishbowl, because every customer gets this portal, but it's not just a microsite. It's not just window dressing to make it look nice. If I go to the admin side of this portal, well, guess what? As a FB Bikes customer, all of the content that's been delivered to me is available here by the customer. And I can go in and target specific groups. I can set up new hires. If I wanted to see what content is being viewed and by whom, I get access to rich reporting and data. And all of that's available to me as the end customer. So now, not only are you enabling the customer to go and learn on their own, but you're also empowering your primary point of contact to drive deeper adoption for the other end users. And as a result, like Fishbowl, it's crazy to see the type of engagement they've had, because now it's this perception from the customer, this is my way to teach my employees how to use the software. And they can automate all of that. It's really, really powerful.
Todd, I think what's important about what we have, and again, we could then roll off the stats of Fishbowl and reducing down all the the amount of support tickets, quicker time to value. But again, those are indicators that the digital academy, the digital scale component they put in is working. So if your admins, your point of contact that you enable to get started with your software, if they say, hey, is this how I'm going to onboard my employees? that means you're having a successful digital academy. That's working. If they don't even know your academy exists, and then they say, hey, now that I'm onboarded, how do I get this out to my employees? And you say, oh, I want to introduce you to the digital academy. And you're like, wait, the digital academy that you told me that's not very good? Well, can then you give me some assets, and then I'll just take your video assets and put it in mine. They're not telling you that they're having issues with your academy. What they're saying is, you've told me it's not very good. I'm believing you, so I'm going to go put it in something that I believe works. Again, if you set them up the right way, introduce the digital academy at the beginning, when the admin is ready to roll this out to their employees, they know how they want to do it because they had a successful experience. Now, why does this set you up for success? Is now, guess what? The CS person already knows that their customer has bought in this platform to get the scaled approach. So now you're not having to offer to do a bunch of instructor-led trainings again. You're not having to say, oh, you know what? We'll find another workaround to make this happen. They've already had that experience. And that's what we're trying to impress upon you is the sooner you can introduce your digital academy, the sooner that you can engage them, use that adaptive learning technique and do it throughout. Todd, talk a little bit too, if you're doing adaptive learning right, how does that then generate customer education sales qualified leads, or CSQLs, I think is the term that everybody uses, right? If I'm giving them little bits and it's what they want, how do I successfully then introduce maybe some customer education qualified leads? What am I doing there?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really important is to think about when you have someone engaging with learning content, you don't want it to just be here's a bunch of videos to go watch or here's a bunch of support articles to read. What you also want to do is you want to be constantly re-engaging with the user to check and see if you're on track. So the analogy that I'll oftentimes use is a lot of times when you think about courses, especially just like a standard instructional design approach is like, let's lead you from point A to point B, and we're going to take you all the way down that road. And that road might be miles and miles and miles long, hundreds of miles long, or in really just hours long is the way you would really think about it. If we're driving down the road, it might take us hours to get where we want to go. So what you want to think about is, are there points along that journey where the user can turn off to go on a detour or to find a shortcut, or if they identified along the journey that there's actually a different destination that they want to get to, that they're able to get there. So for me, adaptive learning isn't just about did I give you the right course at the beginning, but I should be checking in with you periodically to determine if we're still on the right track and give you a chance to divert to a new path if that's what's right for you. Now, the reason why that's powerful in your point around lead generation is because you might have the opportunity to teach someone a really basic idea. Let's say we've got, let's say there's a add-on feature that you sell to your customer around advanced reporting. Well, let's say that user is learning about your standard offering around reporting, and you come in and the user goes through that experience. Well, maybe there's a little 1-minute teaser video that says, here's exactly how this platform works. And then you pause, and you ask the user, would this be something of value to you? Would you be interested in learning more about this? Would you be interested in trialing this? And now you can use that adaptive learning to then get feedback from the user about potential value they have not yet received yet. And now you're using your learning as a way to get insight about who your users are, what matters most to them. And to your point, Casey, even getting and identifying people who are opportunities for expansion. And that I think is a big miss with so much education. It's just like, if I build it and I put all this portal out there, maybe people will come, maybe they won't. And that's it. And that's kind of what we hope happens. And there's so much more that we could do if we were really intentional about, putting in a stop sign on the road and allowing the user to divert to some other location if that's where they really want to go.
I think that's the magic of what we're trying to say. And you're undervaluing your digital approach, your digital academies, platforms. You're undervaluing them because you're not introducing them at the beginning. You're not saying this is a staple in how this is the approach that we take. And by doing that, the results are You're having to hire more implementation people. You're having to hire more CS people. You're forcing your customers to buy professional services to get more training. Those are all indicators that you have not solved the scaled approach. I'm just going to say it bluntly. That is what the indication is. So I hope you're taking from this different ways to do that. Send communications with just a link. Hype up your digital approach. Let people know, whether they're enterprise or they're a smaller type contract, that it should be the same in, I need you to go through this and learn how to set up the system. I need you to. So if you are an enterprise account, I'm having strategic conversations. It should be don't change that. Please don't do that. Number 3, your admins, when they're uploaded and they have the software all ready to go, it is the same digital approach that they should take with their employees. They should feel very comfortable in using your platform, your academy, your digital approach to getting their employees onboarded. And if you've done this right, it should be generating sales qualified leads if we're doing this correctly. If you're rolling out new feature sets of your software, if you've introduced them to this digital academy, that should be the way that that's taking place. If you're not getting those results, go back to step 1. You just have not set up the appropriate emphasis on your onboarding approach with your digital platform. Todd, anything else to add as we wrap up on this episode of SaaS Therapy?
Yeah. So can I just tell you what the results were with Fishbowl and why this was really powerful?
Yes.
So for them, one of the things that was a big deal, I told you at the start, was they wanted to figure out how to onboard customers faster and not spend hours and hours and hours on the phone with them. So one of the things that they saw was about a 62% reduction in the time it took to onboard a new customer. So that's really impressive. They cut the time it took them to onboard a customer down by more than half. So that's awesome. The other thing that was impactful is 57% of their customers were fully onboarded without ever needing a human involved. Now that's really powerful. That means that the customer got fully onboarded without having to talk to the implementation specialist. And by the time they got involved, they're already talking strategy. They're figuring out exactly how to win. And that's amazing, which again, in the past, it was hours and hours on the phone to always happen. They also reduced their support call volume down by 51%, which I think is incredible. And the last one I think is amazing is about 9 out of 10 Fishbowl users said this was awesome. Like, this did exactly what I need. So the great part was I actually ran the numbers for them recently, and they replaced in the amount, just if you look at the amount of time, and remember, these are small users per customer. There's just maybe a few dozen users at most per customer. They had 14,000 hours of content consumed in the last year, which is incredible. It worked out to about an hour per user in the platform. And that's every user that was given access. I'm not talking like a percentage of the users getting an hour. That's on average every user. 100% of the users they put in consumed an hour of content. So we know that customers want this ability to have self-service and drive engagement. The real question is, are we doing the right things as the SaaS vendor to enable them, to go back to your point, Casey? And you know what? If the idea is send them to a totally foreign experience that has tons and tons of resources that they can't figure out how to navigate, and they don't know what's a journey to go down, and then as a result, it has to be a human who holds their hand through that whole experience, then you're going to miss the boat. So you need to have a way to guide them through a really clean, simple, direct experience. And then the humans are checking in periodically to get them motivated, get them inspired, but let the content and the platform be the mechanism to drive them down the road.
Todd, as always with SaaS Therapy, we always end with a challenge. And my challenge is go look at your data. Is that the same for you? Are your how-to questions a little higher than what you want? How many people are actually going and participating in your digital academy? If it's less than 5%, that's not good. You should be expecting a lot more out of that. If your customers are consistently asking, how do I onboard my employees, and they're not satisfied with your digital approach, again, you haven't set it up correctly. If you're having low engagement with new features, that's another indication. Just look at your data. That would be the challenge. Implement some of these things that we've taught you today. Make it an important part of onboarding. Make it an important part of how you actually go out and scale. And if there are gaps, Survey your customers. For those that want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I have a survey that you can send out to your customers asking about that digital platform experience. What does that look like? What do they feel is missing? If you want something like that, there's a good friend of mine that just recently did this with her organization. She's the head of customer education, and she had 300 something responses, and it was pretty clear that, hey, I have 24 apps that I use personally, is what the data was she shared. And I have less than 5 minutes of education, and your education doesn't speak to me. It's not tailored, and it's too long. You need to improve. You need to engage me. That's a little bit about what we're talking about. So that would be our challenge. Go look at your data. We know the value of what you have there. You can do better. We believe in you. We know it. This is kind of a pep talk here at the end. Your digital academy can do a lot more than what you think it can do. Todd, thank you for sharing that use case. That was awesome. Great use cases and different approaches and how we can do that. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us with SaaS Therapy. Again, our only goal is to help you improve those most important relationships, which are our customers. So thank you, Todd.
Thanks, everybody.
SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.